Welcome to the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast, the show dedicated to bring you the news from the oil patch deep in the heart of Texas, with your hosts, Ryan Ray and Josh Shelton.
We're back with the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. This is episode 118. I'm your host, Josh Shelton, with my friend and co-host, Ryan Ray. Ryan, man, we got a busy day today. We have a guest coming on here in just a few minutes, and it's been an interesting week, man. We've had some talks about the cruise and a lot going on. How's things been on your end?
Well, it was good, but I got to break some news here on the show. We talk about Sergio and how great of a reporter he is. So I had to deal with Sergio when he moved to Houston that I would take him to a restaurant down there, downtown Houston, called Culture, one of my favorite restaurants to go. And so I've been waiting to get down there and just for various reasons, hadn't been able to go. So last week I go down to Houston to tell Sergio we go out to Culture. And he gets on his Instagram and he reports it, because we talk about the accuracy of his reporting. He reports it as if he had Culture on my recommendation, omitting the fact that I was there with him at dinner. So based upon that alone, I think we have to start questioning the accuracy of his reporting. I mean, it seems like the pivotal detail of that dinner was that I was there. I mean, what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, much more important than what he was eating, whether it was good or anything like that.
I mean, you had TMZ outside, you had the paparazzi, and he omits that I was there. Maybe it was out of respect, but Sergio, just the facts, man. Just report the facts. So no, that was good. Went down to Houston. Had Culture, which if you haven't had Culture, it's right by the ballpark. One of my favorite places to eat in Houston. But Josh, we have a ton of reviews, and I've had several people message me and said, "Hey, Mount Rushmore," and so we had one listener who proposed to put his face on as the 4th spot, and I had someone else that they're just trying to help us get there. So thank you for all of that. The commies at Apple, they're trying to keep the man down, so we need more ratings and reviews. So 5 stars and some pretty verbiage helps us out a lot. We had 4 come in, Josh? 4, I think, this week, starting with the old Mr. Hicks. This podcast does a great job of hitting the hot topics and news of the industry. Highly recommended. Kyle Peters says, really enjoy the entertainment and insight. I listen on my commute, and it always feels like time well spent. Sean R. Haley, I don't miss an episode. Very factual, informative information that prepares me with conversations with topics needed for weekly meetings. And this is Sean Haley with LineQuest LLC, 2016 Future Industry Leader, 2018 Oil Field Services Company of the Year. That's something we haven't mentioned in a while. If you put your company info in here, you get a free shout out. So 5 stars, company info, you get your free shout out. So LineQuest was the 2018 Oil Field Services Company of the Year. Sean Haley there with that. And then this last one is TFTV75. 5 stars, great source for all things oil and gas, informative, up-to-date topics. Gives me something to look forward to on Mondays, and it's a great way to start your week in the work week in the oil patch. Thank you, everyone. We need more. We're trying to get to that Mount Rushmore spot. And, the folks at Apple, the last thing they would want to see is Texas and oil and gas in the top 4. So please, let's stick it to them. And show them that, hey, we're out here and we're serious, Josh. Oh, I didn't tell you about this, Josh. So, we're talking about feedback, right? And so last week's guest caused a little controversy, I think. I don't know, did you have anybody reach out to you about it?
I had a couple of people reach out. No controversy, though. I had a guy that reached out, wanted to go to lunch, talk about it.
Yeah. So I had a couple people reach out, and they were not very pleased. I say they weren't very pleased. They said the last week's guest was informative. And so we should probably reset here. Our guest, we have a couple policies with our guest. One, and I think we follow this to the T almost always. We don't ever interrupt our guests, Josh. We don't interrupt our guests. So they come on, we pretty much always try to let them talk as long as they want to talk, because they're here, they're the guest. We try to treat them with respect. 2, we're not really a debate show as far as stuff like that goes. So we try to let them say their point, and even if we disagree or whatever, we might slightly tweak something, but pretty much we'll let them get their vantage point out. We have 15 to 30 minutes on this show to record, so people don't realize it sounds like a lot, but really, when you get into it, it's really not a lot. So last week he did say some things that were of interest, but we didn't get to them. But the Prophet of Doom himself has spoken, The Prophet of Doom has come out from the lurky shadows, and and says, so this is our Speakner Says segment of the week. Your guest was interesting with his geopolitics, but when it comes to economics, he appears delusional or just full of it. We'll put it nicely. He says frackers' break-evens are, so Speakner is saying what the guest last week said. Frackers' break-evens are 35 to 40 and on course with Saudi Arabia. Above is the Dallas Fed breakdown, which I believe is also full of it. We'll put it nicely. This is the PG show for Speakner. We got to clean it up here, buddy. If frackers' break-evens are as low as our guest or Dallas Fed says, then tell me why every quarter 90% of frackers are losing money. And he goes on to say a little bit more. So the prophet of doom, Speakner, has poked his head out and said, you know what? Shame that man. Shame him. And the sad part is some of the stuff that Speakner said I actually agreed with. So does that make me a bad person for agreeing with the prophet of doom himself, Josh Speakner?
I don't know, man. Speakner, that's he got quite of a pessimistic look on the industry for the next 2 years. I hope Speakner's wrong in a lot of ways, but you know, some of that stuff with break-even prices, a lot of folks, especially people that are in the industry, they don't really understand that term, that verbiage, and what it entails and how that actually applies to the industry. So definitely sympathize with Speakner there. But overall, I think it was definitely a good show. I had a few people, like I mentioned, reach out to me that were interested in the guy and some of the books that he had written, and they may go and check him out.
Yeah, and I think we're talking offline. I think at least I think you agree with this. What we said was he seems to have a pretty interesting grasp of a wide array of knowledge of what's going on from around the world. But at least as far as it pertains to our industry, he doesn't get below, it sounds like, the talking point. So some of these things like break even, when he's talking about last week about, U.S. dependence on foreign oil, I don't think he fully had if he did, he kind of omitted his logic. So it didn't sound like he was fully in tune with that. But listen, he's welcome to come back on. We're thankful he came on. We're always thankful to all of our guests that come on. And we're thankful for the audience feedback. So Nate will link in our LinkedIn information in the show notes so you can connect with us there. 318-599-9192 is the bat line, or TexasOilAndGasPodcast.com. I'm looking at Nate right now. Nate, we didn't have anything through the website this week, did we? Okay, so nothing to the website. So okay, all right, Josh. Well, that was great, but love the feedback with listeners. It's always good to get it. So let's get into the rest of the show, though.
Okay, right before we jump in, Ryan, do we want to say anything about the cruise? I had a couple of people that asked me about that in some of the meetings this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. oilandgascruise.com. This is only, I know Nate said we has a few signups. Long way to go. This is only your name information, so that Nate's saying 10. So I gotta get to 250, which is 10's a very fractional percentage, and 250 is a small percentage of our listening audience. So yeah, obviously people wait to sign up. You're not signing up. You're not paying anything. You're not committed to anything. You're just saying that you're genuinely interested in going and knowing more. Don't sign up if it's something that you're not, you wouldn't want to do. But if it's something you think you might want to do, then go ahead and sign up. We got 3 weeks left to get this done. If it happens, we'll start the process of actually saying, hey, this is where you sign up and commit. But if it's not of interest, then we'll move on to something else. So thank you for that, Josh. oilandgascruise.com is the website.
All right, moving on. We used to talk a lot about Mexico, Ryan. We joked for a little while we were going to change it to Texas and New Mexico Oil and Gas Podcast. The Mexico at the time was having some issues. There was a presidential election going on and some changes going on in some of their policies. There were some companies that came in and started doing work for Mexico, and according to this article that we're looking at today, there are these companies that about $3 billion worth of payments for contracts that are in limbo. So these contractors are not getting paid for the work that they've done. And so it's creating quite a bit of tension between Mexico and U.S. and the U.S. companies that have been doing some work there. I mean, there's tremendous opportunities for the two countries to come together and both to profit really well. But current regime there, the current president and the policies are making it very difficult for there to be some good progress made.
Yeah, and it's no surprise. If you go back, we talked about this. We said, hey, we were encouraged by Mexico's new policy, which I say new is 2013, but their newer policy compared to the history of Mexico that was allowing foreign companies to come in there to invest, do things. But then when you change it, we were kind of concerned. What's going to happen companies that are wanting to invest. And this is kind of that classic example of, man, I hate to say he told me so, but I think we told him so on this one. The problem here is really government policy coming in, messing things up, and changing things. When you have companies who are sitting there willing to put their money on the line, you it creates instability, not only for this time, but let's just say I think Mexican presidential terms are 6 years if I remember correctly, but let's just say it's 6 for argument's sake. So he's been in for 2, I think now. So 4 years from now, they have a new president or whenever the term's up, and they go back to the old policy. Well, if you're going to look to invest millions of dollars down there, you're going to say, okay, is Mexico actually going to go back to the policy before the previous president, or every president, or every 10 years they're going to flip flop? So from that standpoint, it also creates instability because you might can work this deal out, and you might go back under the old policies in 3 to 4 years. But I think long term, you need the stability of the free market to come in and say this is where we think that things are headed. If foreign companies want to come in here and invest, this is where we want to go. The final thing I said on an Energy Week podcast, I said on here, and as pertains to Venezuela, and I would say to all these developing nations, they need to give the minerals back to the people. Giving the minerals to the people is one of the ways that you can spur on economic growth. And there's all kinds of things that happen. For our listeners that listen to this podcast will understand this. As landowners become more and more savvy, they understand better ways to negotiate their contracts. They understand different ways, different angles they can take. We have landowners that listen to this podcast because they're curious of what's going on, because they're out there negotiating with oil and gas companies, because they're creating wealth for them and their families. Giving the minerals back to the surface owners as it stands now would create wealth and opportunity that isn't presently there in Mexico or developing nations. And so it's something that these socialist countries don't want to do, but it actually would create a lot of wealth and a lot of job opportunity, because then all of a sudden you'd come in and you'd say, okay, well, this is the Shelton Ranch. Here's how we want to negotiate this. This is so-and-so's ranch. Here's how we want to negotiate this. And there's all these ancillary things that come along with that we don't think about. Culverts being put in, roads being built, power lines being put out there. So aside from the reforms, which probably need to go back in place, these countries need to consider seriously giving back the minerals to the people.
Yeah, and the people that did put their money up on this deal, it's going to make anyone hesitant, even if the policies were to change. Who's going to want to go in and put $3 billion for their stuff? At this point, I'd be nervous if there's a new president that was all for it. A few years down the line, it may get reversed, and I may have money on the line that I'll never get back. So
that's right. And the other thing on the U.S. side of things right now, regardless of your Trump stance on what he's doing right or wrong, while he's in office as a U.S. company, you have to believe that he is going to probably go to bat for you to get your money back on some level, because that's kind of been his narrative. However, if the U.S. winds change and you have a Democrat president who might not be as adversarial as Trump is, you might lose it on both sides, where the Mexican laws have changed and they're not in your favor, and then you might have a president who is also not willing to go to bat for you. Obviously, Governor Abbott here in Texas is going to bat for the folks here in Texas, but so it's really, you also have the U.S. side of things as well. If you had a much more different person in the White House, it might not have the support you're looking for there either.
Mm-hmm. Well, article came out, Oil and Gas 360 today, or not today, it came out August 12th. U.S. shale output to rise to record 8.77 million barrels per day in September. This is reported from the EIA, the numbers. And it shows that we're going to be at record output in September. So it's something that we've been expecting for a while. With all the news coverage, some people may be surprised to know that we are about to set break records here in September for oil output. Some of that has to do with some coinciding pipelines that are coming online, so that there's more availability to transport the oil. But it's good news all around, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as the rig count goes down, where the production, how far after the production falls off as well. And this kind of goes to that DUC debate. Will the DUCs come online? If so, when are they going to come online, and how many DUCs, as we talked about the show, are there actually? So I'm not exactly sure where I fall in on this, Josh, because I'm trying to pull up right now. So a quick look right here. I hadn't looked at this recently. I'm looking at the drilling info rig count. So if I go back to July 18th, according to drilling info, so that's a month back, there was 999 rigs, and today there's 968 rigs. It looks like we bottomed out at 965. So, and we dropped 17 rigs in the last week, if I'm reading this correctly from drilling info. Okay. So, you know, you go back from a month ago, we're down, was it almost 30-something rigs, or whatever it was there. That doesn't, you expect the production to slow off on a surface level, but as we know, you got to get the rigs out there, you know, and then when as the wells come online, which takes a little bit of time, that's going to increase the numbers, and then the ducks. You know, when do the ducks come in? How many ducks are there? I think that's going to be the interesting thing to see. But if the rigs keep going down, I think Harold Ham, who I don't know if I told Nate this or not, but I know he's listening, so we need to try to get Harold Ham on the show. But I think Harold Ham said last week he's wanting the number to be around 800 rigs. He thinks 800 is kind of the magical number there, and I know there's some debate about that. That's what I'm interested to see is, you know, when do the rigs go down, the price level off? But it feels like, without being said, that the price is really being dictated more by fear on the economic side than actual production numbers. But because I'll say this, the API last week released the thing that said that July had the highest crude oil demand, I believe it was, since July 2005. So the demand on some things is still there. It's just the price is still kind of soft. So anyways, I do think the rig thing, as you're saying, the rigs are going to go down, and then eventually you'll see the production level start to fall. But in September it might peak, October might be a slight drop off, but the rigs keep going down. Eventually, unless the ducks come on, it's just going to come down. And then what do the prices do? And at that point, we're going to be looking at the what's going on in China, the economy, things like that. Going, okay, is the economy strong? If it is strong, the price should start to rise. If the economy's weak, if the trade war's still going on, or it's more severe, then you might see the price continue to be soft into next year.
And it's just curious as to how much efficiency per well has increased and how long it'll take for the decrease in rig count to actually cause the decrease in the production. Tracking that's going to be certainly interesting. Epic announces initial crude delivery into Corpus Christi. So we've been following this Epic line for quite some time. This is the Y-grade pipeline, which is a 24-inch. It went online and it's delivering to Corpus. So 400,000 barrels of oil per day. It goes to multiple refiners in the Corpus area. And it's pretty interesting to see that middle of the year next year, the 30-inch line that Epic has been working on is going to complete, and they're going to transfer this line back to a natural gas NGL line. So it's going to be interesting to see that too, because right now they're running oil through it, but middle of the year next year they're supposed to, or even first quarter, they're supposed to try to switch it back to an NGL as they prepare for this 30-inch line that's supposed to come online.
Even though we've literally done nothing for this project on a tangible level, I feel like this is because of us. I mean, this was episode 1, and we talked about this project, and we have been faithfully covering them for 115 episodes now. So, I mean, congratulations, Josh. Congratulations, Ryan, Nate, Textile Guest Podcast listeners. I feel like we're really the reason this thing got done.
Yeah.
Nate says President Trump allowed it because of us. Nate, thank you. I forgot about that. Nate with the astute comment that yes, I think we begged. I say begged. We don't beg anybody, but we threatened President Trump with fear of re-election if he didn't get it done, and he got it done. So the real question is when does Epic send us a check? I haven't got my check yet. I don't know. Maybe Nate's got them. He's holding them. But Epic, you're welcome. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome for getting this done, and we'll continue to be there beside you as you get the more projects done. But Josh, I mean,
yeah, I need a trophy as well, like the MVP trophy or something, like along with the check. Something to put on the wall,
like a gold medal maybe or something like that. You know, I tell you what, if we get the top 4, we'll consider putting Epic as the 4th Mount Rushmore because they're episode 1. plus a
That's
small
good idea.
donation from Epic. Small
Yeah.
donation from Epic. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, seven
But,
figures, something small.
7-8 figures, something like that per host. But no, I did see this. It's good to see. And you remember this story? This Epic story is kind of interesting because, and they all kind of get tangled in there. But it's a deal where, there was the natural gas line, and they converted it back for oil use for temporary and stuff like this. So it is good to see that these pipelines are going online, and large in part to the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast is the main reason for that. So kudos to us.
Well, we had another one. The New Star receives first shipment of Permian crude oil at Corpus Christi terminal. So these things are going to be intertwined a bit. But New Star is connected with the Plains line, the Cactus 2 pipeline, and it has been transported 500 miles to this new export facility. So New Star, new export facility, received this first shipment. So these are the things that I think are contributing to the expectation of rising production next month.
Well, it's interesting here. Sean Strawbridge is quoted, and I believe that we asked Nate to get Sean Strawbridge on the show, Josh, but it's funny, oilandgas360.com got him, but, or I'm sorry, the Houston Chronicle got him, but we hadn't got him, and so it's disappointing to say the least. So we go from a great high of getting the Epic done to a reminder that we can't get Sean Strawbridge back on, because we've had a few folks email in about the Port of Corpus Christi and what may or may not be going on down there. So no pressure, Nate, but we're calling you out publicly.
And the last article we got for the day before Mr. Dancy comes on is Exxon considering sale of UK North Sea assets. Now, just to clarify here on this report, we don't see any sources quoted here, so I don't know exactly how accurate all of this is, but it's certainly interesting to see what Exxon's doing, especially as there are some expectations that we may see them making some moves in the Permian pretty soon this year. So they're selling, is said it predicted could be up to $3.1 billion for some Norwegian assets.
Yeah, and as Josh said, this is, quote, citing industry sources, and then there was another thing I think that I'm not a big believer in the industry sources thing. It could be true, could not be true. I do think it is something to follow, just to see if this does happen. Well, let's just presume this report is correct. Then that would mean that the viability of the Permian long term in Exxon's mind is really substantial. But I would just be shocked to see them do this. But maybe so. I don't know. I got a feeling our boy Speakner is gonna, the Prophet of Doom Speakner will be weighing in on this. But yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm curious if the listeners are buying it. Hit us up. Let us know. Is Exxon going to sell their North Sea assets? And also, just to be clear, it could be that this story is partially true, Josh. They could be looking to sell their North Sea assets, focus on U.S. production, but also buy a separate asset that they're not necessarily talking about. Yep. So there could be more to the story than just a simple cut and dry, go from A to B type deal. So we'll have to see. So
absolutely, Ryan, I actually missed an article. You mentioned Sergio a little earlier. And he did have a report. This is kind of be a Texas Roundup mention here. In Canada, they're roaring back to life. And what he has here is that they filed for 14 drilling permits on its Neal 39 leases in Upton County. So 14 drilling permits in Canada, making some moves out in the Permian.
But being that we've reported accurately that he sometimes omits facts, we have to bring it into question now. That maybe someone else had permits too that he didn't mention. So it still stuns me though. If you look at those numbers from his report, that they're still doubling up every one Exxon is, and so they're so far ahead of the pace right now that it's. I'm curious to see how long they keep that pattern. And we've heard some stuff that we can't talk about online about some potential producers who will be ramping up. So be curious to see how those numbers shake out towards the end of the year.
All right. Well, guys, looks like Nate was supposed to get on Joe Dancy today, but I think...
Wow. We're trying to get Mount Rushmore, Nate. We're trying to get Mount Rushmore, and dude, you can't even get the guests on the show. Golly. I mean, Josh, how in the world? I mean, we spend literally 15 minutes a week prepping for the show, and Nate can't get on a guest. It's like, Nate, we put in 15 hard minutes preparing for the show every week. At least you could do is get a guest on. That's 15 minutes is a long time of work that we put on the show every week, Josh. I mean, not counting recording time, which is like another 15 minutes. We work 30 minutes a week on the show. The least he could do is book a guest.
Yeah, internet connection, a couple of keys on a keyboard. I mean,
how hard is it? How hard is it?
Can't be that hard.
Well, for the listeners out there, you see what we're dealing with. We need a rating. We need a review. We need 5 stars. I don't know what you're not giving 5 stars to Nate. We understand that. You're giving 5 stars to Josh and myself, and it pains me to have to partner with Josh on a deal like this. But when I'm battling Nate, it's it is what it is. So. We need 5 stars. Maybe that will inspire Nate to go out and book a guest and have them on the show. So that's okay. With Joe Dancy, we were looking forward. I was looking forward to it. Josh, were you looking forward to it?
Oh yeah, I was.
Oh yeah, it'd have been great. It'd been great. Probably been the most informative thing our listeners would have heard this week, but instead they're not. Now allegedly we have 2 guests next week, but at this time, I'm not sure if they're coming on or not. I'm not sure if we'll be here next week or not. But until then. 5-star rating review. Oh, hey, I'll be at NAPE this week. Be in Houston. Go down Tuesday night. So if you're in and about NAPE, hit me up on LinkedIn, or if you have my number, hit me on the bat line, and we can connect. And hopefully next week we should be back. Allegedly, we have 2 guests next week, which means we have none. Josh and I should be here. And until then, keep climbing.